Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in once again to the Reclaiming My Life podcast. We are so excited about this episode here tonight. But before we dive in, please meet my beautiful co authors, Mrs. Tiffany Tyson,
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Reclaiming My Life podcast.
the lovely Mrs. Tramika Cooper.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another episode of Reclaiming My Life.
Thank you, beautiful ladies. Tonight we're going to talk a little bit, of course, trials, and trauma. I know right before the pandemic and during the pandemic, many people went through trials and struggles. And tonight, our special guest is here to share his story, his testimony of trials to triumph. Please meet Christopher Holmes.
Hello, Miss Claudia, and everybody's on the podcast. Glad to be here.
Hello, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
I'm glad to be here. Yes,
Awesome.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. If you
Mm-hmm.
would, please share your story with us. Of course, we are Facebook friends and we've developed a Facebook relationship.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
I enjoy you. I definitely want to let the people know that first and foremost, you are a comedian. So if y'all need a laugh, follow him, okay? Because he's just gonna make you laugh at any given
Ain't
time.
been ain't been ain't been a whole lot funny lately though, Miss Claudia.
But you still been giving the people something, even in the midst,
Yeah.
okay?
Yes,
So we
ma'am.
thank you. We thank you for that. Even in the midst of your trials, you still making us smile, even if it's at
Yes,
you.
ma'am.
Yeah. So,
Yes, ma'am.
if you would tell us about the situation and, your experience right before the pandemic and during the pandemic.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I don't even know where to start because 2020 hit. Everything was doing good. Had a 13-year career as a sales professional. Now when people ask me what do, I tell them I'm basically a comedian that happens to be a salesperson. But uh, 2020 showed me that I was not in charge of anything. so
Okay.
and when I say anything, I mean anything. I watched the doors close to my business that I was with for 13, almost 14 years, which left me out on the street, unemployed, uh, couldn't find a job, tried to reopen the business. And when we did, nobody came. So I was back out on the street, unemployed. First time in my life I had been in a situation that I could not control. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and needless to say, it was not a good feeling at all. And I do mean at all. So if God wanted my attention in 2020, he surely got it. Sometimes it takes bad things to make us appreciate the good things. Okay.
Yes.
Uh, and I'm telling you, overnight, boom, I was out of work. No income, had to live off my credit cards, had to live off whatever little money I had in my savings, which, you know, and I was out of work for about 5 months, 5.5 months. And to be honest with you, why it was a trying time, I wouldn't go back and change anything about that because it made me a better person. But what it showed me about life is this: we're not in control as much as we think we are.
Right.
Okay, so I wouldn't go back and change anything. It left me. I lost a lot. I lost, you know, most of what I lost was material things that, if you work hard enough and have faith, you can get those things again. So cars or whatever else I had, I watched a lot of stuff go down the drain that I worked really hard for. And even the place where I was living, I had to move in with a good friend of mine. And as a man, that was a very humbling experience, having to move in and go live with another man, just because I
Right.
had to cut back on my finances. I had to let a car that I worked hard for uh, go back because I couldn't
Mhm.
afford, to I had to make a lot of life changing decisions, keep paying for a car or have a place to stay. So you got to do what you got to do. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So um, it was a very trying time, but again, I say it just made me see how much control I did not have over life, because that life can throw you some curveballs. Let me tell you something that you ain't ready for
Right.
at all. Okay, and they don't call them curveballs for no reason. Curveballs are hard to hit. Okay, so so and it threw me a curveball that I was not ready for. And to be honest with you, yeah, I make people laugh and things of that nature, but 2020, there was nothing funny about that year at
Mhm.
all. It left me depressed. It left me sad. Um, it left me not knowing where my life was going. Uh, Without a roadmap, I just felt helpless. I mean, oh my God, it's I probably experienced every emotion that a human person could go through.
Mm.
Um, and most men, we're not taught to really be open and honest about our feelings or show emotion or talk about what we're feeling or what we're going through. But I'm a little bit different than that. So I even got on Facebook one day and got really emotional about what I was going through,
It's
and
not
had a
new
lot of people
now.
reach out to me. Yeah. So, um, I had a lot of people concerned about me, and righteously so. I mean, I had a moment that most people don't see. Especially with a man, let alone a black man, getting emotional, because we're not taught to be emotional. We're not taught to show that side of us. But truth be told, men do cry.
Oh
Okay,
yeah.
we do get emotional. Uh, But I think the travesty in that is we don't show emotion to the people that love us the most, our wives or our girlfriend, our fiancés or our families or whatever. So I mean, uh, I think that part of us needs to be shown. But growing up, we're not taught to be to show that emotional side of us that we all have.
Right.
Like I said, we cry, but we cry on the way to AutoZone or going to Walmart or but when you get back to the house, you better have yourself together. But that's just
Mhm.
not the way. That's not realistic. You feel me?
Right.
So I mean,
I
if
do. Yeah.
especially if you married and you can't show your partner that side of you, that's really sad. But
Mhm.
um, I could go on and on, but I'm sure you have some other questions.
Yes. So, what I want to say right now before, my co-authors come on, I really want to point out because one of the authors in our book, Reclaiming My Life, she's not on here tonight, Joanne Bellamy. She wrote about homelessness, and just how, people judge people that are homeless, right? And
Yeah,
although you weren't homeless, just listening to your story, you could have been. You lost everything in the
yeah,
blink of an eye. It's so
yes,
easy for people to lose a home, whether, you lose a job, whatever the situation may be, things get behind. Sometimes, we can't help the situations that arise. So I really
right.
want to point that out. I wish Joanne was on here tonight, because a lot of times people like looking at the homeless people on the street. But we thank God that you had a place to go. Also, I just want to say when you talked about being so emotional and how men don't express their emotions. That's just another thing I think
Mhm.
that, your audience love about you is that you're very open in what you're feeling and the way you express yourself. And I really appreciate that you shared that because, it's unhealthy to hold in all of those emotions. Let it out. I
Mhm.
recall the day you
Right.
were on Facebook and I mean, you were so emotional. I mean, like you really let it out. You shared everything that you were going through, you know, what you had lost, how you were feeling. You showed your whole heart. And, you know, that's what people need to see in all people, not
Yeah.
just women. So, you know, I thank you for that. I'm gonna
Yes,
bring
ma'am.
on Tramika. Tramika, I know you're listening to Chris, and do you have a question or comment to his testimony here?
I do. Chris, I want to first thank you for being open and honest. Like you said, men really don't like to express their feelings. So I appreciate you for that. During your
Yes, ma'am.
trial, during that time period, did you have anybody else as a support team?
Yeah. I had, close friends of mine that's been friends of mine for 20 plus years. So yeah, I had a support system, and I think some people during that time, fared a little bit better than me at that point, so I had to kind of lean on those people, to try to
Right,
help me, get through some of the stuff. Cause I mean, to be honest with you, I'd never been through, I've been working since I was like 7 or 8 years old. So that's the longest stint of time I've ever been without a job.
wow,
People could say a lot of things about me, but being lazy ain't one of, okay. So, but yeah, for me to just not be working, um, was just something I just wasn't accustomed to. But I will say this. I said earlier that I wouldn't go back and change anything. And the reason why is somebody said to me, said, even though you're going through, look at the good at what in that time they basically was saying process the whole thing and what you're going through to help you get through this. So
right.
the good thing in that was I got an extended amount of time off of work, okay, that
Mm-hmm.
I've never had before since I've been working. That was the longest stint of time that I've ever had to be off work. I got a chance to go to the park. I got a chance to just to do things that I wasn't accustomed to doing because I worked so much. So I got a
Right,
chance to travel a little bit and see my family I hadn't seen in a while. But it just, it's so crazy because it shouldn't take something like that for you to travel. It shouldn't take something like that for you to go see loved ones. It shouldn't take something bad for something good to happen. You know what I'm saying? But oftentimes it takes something drastic like that to happen for you to understand what life is really about.
right. So true. Thank you so much, Chris.
And thank
Yes,
you,
ma'am.
Tamika.
Hmm.
All right, Dr. Tyson.
Yes. Hi there. First, I want to say thank you again for joining us tonight.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, I heard you mention faith, so you sound like a man of God. So, how did you let God step in and take over or take charge, or your faith take charge during the midst of your storm?
Well, you know what? To be honest with you, when your back is against the wall and you don't have, and you on your back and you ain't got nowhere to look but up, okay, let's start right there. So I was on my back, and somebody said a long time ago, when you on your back, you don't have nowhere else to look but up. So that moment, basically, I'm not gonna say forced me more into the presence of God, but it really got my attention. And like I said earlier, it just showed me how much uh, uh, that I was not in control, because all that stuff that happened to me wouldn't have happened if I was in control of it. So the pandemic and the business shutting down and all that type of stuff, it was just that was the besides one other time, which last year I went through something tragic. Um, Besides that time in 20, I just watched stuff just fall apart, and there wasn't nothing I could have done to save it. So, needless to say, I felt very helpless. But I wouldn't go back and change any of it, because I mean now. Uh, so had I not gone through that, I probably wouldn't be where I am now. If
So,
that
how
makes
did you
sense.
how did you reclaim your life?
So uh, I end up, so through much prayer, okay, so because I mean, like I said, when your back is against the wall, uh, and you have nothing but God to rely on, because let's just be real. There wasn't nothing that a person could have done for me. A human person.
Right.
I had to tap into a power that was greater than myself in order to get through what I was going through.
All right now.
And that was not a woman or a man or my daughter or anybody. That was not a human person that could really help me. You know, I had people reaching out to me and praying for me and things of that nature, but that was a time in my life where I just knew I had to rely on something, an entity, which is God, which I could not see, to help me. And not to saying that I wasn't believing in God before all that, but uh, let's just say that it got me in a better place spiritually, uh, with God. So I mean, I had a lot of people praying. Of course, I prayed a lot more,
Okay.
and so I'm originally from Alabama, and ended up getting married, and actually during that time, I, for whatever reason, hopped online and met my wife, and so we met right in the midst of the pandemic, and we've had our own little, you know, bumps in the road through, you know, that time or whatever, you know, but that was a beautiful thing that came out of that. And I ended up moving away from there, ended up getting a whole lot better job than what I had, making way more
Wonderful.
money,
Wonderful.
working less hours, less stress. Okay.
Wonderful.
So before that, it's so crazy because before that even happened, I had already been feeling in my spirit that I needed to leave Alabama, but I was just following God. I was waiting for my youngest daughter to actually graduate from high school, and that was my youngest daughter, three girls. Um, and so when my plans was to leave when she graduated. She's supposed to have been graduated May of last year. Okay, well, last year that daughter, who I was waiting on to graduate, life was taken. You know, an unfortunate domestic dispute with an ex-boyfriend. So I lost a 17-year-old daughter last year, to add to all the other stuff I was going through. So, you know, you know, we look at people every day and don't know what people are dealing with, what they're going through
Exactly.
mentally,
Exactly.
physically, financially, spiritually, or otherwise, you know. And my grandmother used to say, don't judge a book by its cover. You got to open it up and read the content.
Right.
And you know, nobody would have never known I was going through any of that. And really, to be honest with you, you know, I was waiting on her to graduate. That happened. So right after that happened, I just held true to what I told my daughter. I was like, you know, the day you graduate, I'm putting in my 2-week notice. So we got my daughter buried and things of that nature. I went right back to work, put my notice in, and moved to South Carolina and didn't look back. So got here, got situated, got things. What was crazy, my wife and I was going through some things at the time, and we were separated. So um, soon as that stuff happened with my daughter, we 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 forgot about any beef we was going through, dealing with, what have you. And I made a phone call, and she got up in the middle of the night, hopped on the road, drove 8+ hours to come be with me through that whole ordeal. And you know, like I said, we've had our trials and tribulations and everything, and we're going through some things now, trying to work some things out. You know, I'm a realist, okay, and when you're trying to work things out with somebody other than yourself, and you're trying to bring two people together, it's like oil and water. Sometimes it's not gonna mix. You know what I'm saying? So you have to have faith. You have to have plenty of discussions and understandings and communication, of which we both, God has shown us, both of us have had to work on. So But like I said, I wouldn't change anything about what I've gone through, because like I said, God brought me to a better place, a better job. Uh, I make more money. I work less hours. I don't have the stress that I used to have. And, through trying to get back on my feet and trying to even keep myself mentally stable, as Miss Claudia said earlier, I've always been a jokester. I've always been a comedian. That's my gift. And even when I was going through the worst times in my life, I was still posting stuff to make people laugh on Facebook.
Mhm.
And somebody made the comment. They was like, well, somebody said, well, you don't look like you're going through anything. I can't tell by your Facebook page. So I'm like, because I post something that's inspiring or funny, that don't mean that I'm not going through anything. And the person was like, I never really looked at it like that. And Smokey Robinson had a song way back when called "The Tears of a Clown When No One's Around." That song perfectly described myself, because I was having suicidal thoughts. I was going through a whole lot of stuff, man. And to look at me, you wouldn't have never thought that I would have even been thinking like that at all, or even dealing with
Wow.
those type of thoughts that I was. And I was still posting things online to encourage and make other people laugh and brighten other people's day. And I'm catching hell. And I'm posting this stuff, but what I realized in that moment, when I saw something funny and I posted it, that was encouraging me too.
Yes,
Right.
So
absolutely.
it wasn't just for other people, it was encouraging me also. So, I've learned to just be obedient to even that gift, because the Bible says your gift will make room for you. So
Yes,
even in the
indeed.
worst times in my life, I was still posting funny content. But God was like, I gave you that gift. I gave you somebody needs to laugh today. Somebody could be thinking about committing suicide. You know what I'm saying? I've had people that inbox me and said, you posted something today and it kept me from doing something to myself.
Hmm.
So you never know, who you're helping just by posting a joke or something to
Right.
encourage somebody. You just don't know. So I try to really be true to that.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yes, awesome. Thank you so much, Chris, for sharing. And I know that your testimony would definitely inspire someone because, even now, someone is struggling, someone is having a hard time, someone is about to lose or have lost everything. But, I'm going
Yeah.
to close this segment with when you're down to nothing, God is up to something.
Amen.
So stay inspired, stay encouraged, because Chris here is a living testimony, along with so many others, that you can reclaim your life. Be blessed.
Amen.